quarter. Shown here are adopted and amended amounts for revenues and expenditures, along with actuals and percent of amended budget to date. The fiscal year 23-24 budget adjustment log, or BAL, is attached as Exhibit 1 to the report and summarizes all budget amendments executed during the first quarter. It includes expenditure adjustments in both operations and the CIP project accounts. As of the date that data was compiled, overall revenue actuals were $24.2 million, which represents 18% of the amended budget. Operating expenditures and encumbrances were at $24.1 million, or 20% of the amended budget. And capital project expenditures and related encumbrances were at $12.5 million, or 28% of the amended CIP budget. The chart on the screen here provides a visualization of city revenues through the first quarter when compared year over year. Actual revenues were up approximately $2.1 million when compared with the same period last fiscal year. As expected, there is a noticeable upward trend from pandemic lows in the first quarter of fiscal year 2021. This can be attributed to several factors, including a steady increase in sales tax revenues, as well as a significant increase in ticket sales revenue from the Cerritos Center for the Performing Arts. Sales tax remains the city's primary source of revenue, accounting for about 1/3 of the overall annual revenue stream. Based on the analysis provided by the city's sales tax consultant, HDL Companies, the year-end estimate for last fiscal year and adopted forecast for this year projected a temporary stagnation in the growth of the city's economy. The city recently received its final sales tax allocation for fiscal year 22-23, closing the year with actual revenues at about $46.7 million. This total was slightly below the year-end projection, but exceeded the adopted budget by $2.7 million. The second quarter update for calendar year 2023 from HDL, which is attached to the report as Exhibit 2, reported a minor year-over-year sales tax decrease of 0.2%. And this is attributed mainly to economic fluctuations and increased interest rates impacting the auto transportation sector. The chart here shows the city's actual sales tax revenues against budget estimates and the latest forecasts from HDL, demonstrating a short-term plateau in revenue. For the current fiscal year, 23-24, HDL has adjusted the sales tax revenue projection to $46.8 million for the city's general fund, which is $200,000 less than the adopted budget. Nevertheless, projections from HDL suggest that sales tax revenue will resume to normal growth rates around 3% in the upcoming years. The city's combined operating costs include personnel, operations, and maintenance, and certain components of capital outlay, such as equipment purchases. Recurring revenues fund these ongoing expenditures each year to provide a balanced budget. Amendments in quarter one included new allocations of about $1 million for a revised total of $120.5 million in the operating budget. As shown in the budget adjustment log, these allocations were largely carryovers from fiscal year 22-23 for capital equipment initially ordered in the previous fiscal year, but postponed due to widespread supply chain disruptions. Additional allocations were also made for securing professional consulting services for Geographic Information Services, or GIS, and for leasing 2 portable observation devices aimed at graffiti mitigation. Transfer amendments totaling $183,000 did not result in an increase to the total operational budget. The chart on this slide illustrates that actual operational expenditures and encumbrances through quarter one were at $24.1 million, representing 20% of the amended budget. In comparison with last fiscal year, these expenditures were up $4.9 million at the 3-month mark. Of that, personnel expenditures through quarter one were at $9.3 million. Operations and maintenance expenditures were at $13.4 million. And capital outlay expenditures, which cover the approved replacement of equipment citywide, were at $1.4 million. The city's CIP is a 5-year plan that funds various capital projects, such as the rehabilitation of public facilities, tree reforestation, and street resurfacing. Unlike the operating budget, one-time resources such as surplus revenues, reserves, grants, and reimbursements provide funding for capital projects. The adopted CIP budget originally provided funding of $28.5 million from various resources, with amendments through Q1 increasing this year's appropriation to $45.1 million. Although recognized as new allocations in the budget for the current year, any adjustment identified in the BAL as a project carryover from the prior year is utilizing previously approved but unspent funding that remained in the fund balance. The carryover of CIP budgets for projects in progress is authorized in the Strategic Financial Plan and Budget Preparation Policy approved by the City Council. And this practice is typical in municipal CIP operations, as many public projects extend into fiscal years beyond their commencement. The chart on this slide shows CIP expenditure activity through Q1 year over year. Actual expenditures and encumbrances at the end of Q1 were approximately $12.5 million, representing about 28% of the amended budget. In comparison with the same period last fiscal year, actual and encumbered CIP expenditures were up about $6.6 million. The Department of Public Works, Water, and Power began the first quarter working to execute the CIP as approved by City Council. The report provides some highlights on certain projects currently underway in order to provide an update to the City Council and Cerritos community on CIP progress to date. To provide you with additional information and photos of some of these projects, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Associate Civil Engineer Amandeep Maan, after which we will conclude with some additional information on audit compliance and budget processes. Amandeep?
Thank you, Peter. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. During the first quarter of the current fiscal year, staff worked diligently on completing projects that were started in the fourth quarter of the previous fiscal year and are currently underway or near completion. The first of these is the fiscal year 2023 CDBG funded project, in which approximately 24,200 square feet of concrete was rehabilitated and 19 ADA compliant curb ramps were installed. Next slide, please. As part of the street rehabilitation project, Dumont Avenue between 183rd Street and Artesia Boulevard was rehabilitated. The construction work was coordinated with Valley Christian High School to minimize traffic impacts. Approximately 114,000 square feet of pavement was removed and replaced, and new ADA-compliant curb ramps were installed. Next slide, please. On this slide, the photo on the left is for Gridley Road Rehabilitation Project. Gridley Road was rehabilitated between 183rd Street and South Street. This section of the street was deemed by the city's pavement management plan as one of the worst sections of the pavement throughout the city. A portion of the street improvements were located in the city of Artesia, and the city of Artesia will be reimbursing the city of Cerritos for the costs incurred. The project included rehabilitating approximately 187,000 square feet of pavement, also installed 2,735 linear feet of conduit for potential fiber optic communication, repaired concrete sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, and removed 26 trees. The picture on the right shows work under progress for 183rd Street. On this street, approximately 119,000 square feet of pavement was restored, sidewalks, curbs, and gutters were also repaired, along with removal of 9 trees. This project was completed in October. Next slide, please. The city is a recipient of funds from Metro for improvements at the intersection of Carmenita Road and South Street. Metro provided significant funding for this project to improve the capacity of the intersection by the construction of additional left turn lanes on both northbound and southbound approach of the Carmenita Street. A new traffic signal cabinet will be installed and pedestrian signals will be upgraded. It should be noted that City of La Palma is also participating in this project, and a new median with landscaping will be installed on Moody Street. This project is anticipated to be completed in the third quarter. Next slide, please. In addition to the street projects, staff is working on improving city-owned buildings also. In the previous fiscal year, the California room at CPE was identified to be in need of new flooring. This space is well utilized for a variety of programs, in addition to other occasions such as weddings and birthday celebrations. A new flooring pattern and colors were installed that complemented its use. Furthermore, the old and inoperable movable walls that were in place were removed. New separation walls with new motors were installed, along with a new hearing loop system. Next slide, please. Another building improvement project that is currently under construction is the re-roofing of some sections at the CCPA. The existing roofs at the ticketing office, the barrel above the theater, and above the actors block will be removed and replaced with a new PVC roof. The decorative tile patterns on the roof will be replaced in kind above the actors block. This work is anticipated to be completed early in the third quarter. Thank you for providing the opportunity to update the City Council regarding the CIP projects. With that, I would like to return the presentation to Mr. Kemp.
Thank you, Ms. Mon. During the first quarter, the Finance Division worked to close and finalize the city's financial records for fiscal year 22-23, which ended on June 30th. As part of that process, the independent auditor began review of the city's financial activities and compliance for last fiscal year in preparation for the annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or ACFR. Staff does not anticipate any compliance issues and is preparing to present the ACFR to the City Council for its review and consideration in December. Also, during the first quarter, the Budget Office initiated revisions to the fiscal year 23-24 adopted budget as directed by the City Council. These modifications include minor formatting adjustments and data updates, such as a recalculation of fund balances by the Finance Division. The updated document is slated for publication later this month. Moving into the second quarter, preparations are underway for the upcoming strategic planning session set for December 2nd, 2023. This session will establish the City Council's priority goals and serve as a roadmap for the fiscal year 24-25 budget development process. As part of this preparation, staff recently distributed a memorandum to each City Council member soliciting proposals for potential priority goals to be discussed during the strategic planning session. The input from the City Council is crucial to the strategic planning process. Staff anticipates receiving each council member's suggestions early next week, allowing for comprehensive preparation ahead of the session. Additionally, all Cerritos residents are encouraged to provide their input as it relates to the upcoming strategic planning session on December 2nd. Residents can provide written correspondence through the City Clerk's office at any time prior to the meeting. Additionally, there will be opportunities for residents to present their ideas and perspectives during the session through public comments, ensuring their voices are heard and considered in the City Council's deliberations. At this time, it is respectfully recommended that the City Council review and consider this report and direct staff accordingly, and review and ratify the executed budget amendments from the first quarter of fiscal year 23-24 as summarized in the attached budget adjustment log in Exhibit 1. This concludes the presentation on this item. Mr. Lopez, Ms. Mon, and myself are available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the report. Are there any questions? Yes,
Yes,
Frank.
please. Thank you. Thank you for the report, Peter. And thank you for the details. And I just wanted to turn to the quarter one operations expenditures. And you do have a PowerPoint for that. When you explain it in the agenda report, why quarter one for this fiscal year is 24.1 million, and you also point out in the agenda report that it's about 5 million more than last year. But when you look at this chart, it's significantly more than the last 4 years. I know that includes some pandemic years. So you explained how that 4.9 million, why we're $4.9 million more this quarter than last quarter. Is there anything we have to be concerned about, or just that's just how things worked out this first quarter? And like you pointed out in the agenda report, personnel expenditures were higher than last quarter. Operations and maintenance expenditures were higher than last quarter, and capital outlay expenses were much higher. Last year it was $100,000, and this quarter it's 1.4 million. So it just worked out that way, and we don't have to worry that we're $5 million higher in quarter one operations expenditures, which is significantly higher than the previous 4 years.
Thank you for the question, council member. And I think you alluded to much of it just now. There are quite a few factors, I think, involved in the difference that you see there. And I think that, I feel confident saying they're all fairly normal circumstances. There is the one outlier is probably the capital equipment, which you also alluded to. And as I mentioned in the report and in the presentation, the past couple of years, particularly going back to COVID, really, the beginning of the pandemic, we've had some pretty significant supply chain issues. I am pleased to announce, give to the council, let the council know that we have been able to kind of catch up on some of those prior planned purchases, particularly as it relates to city vehicles. We have had quite a few vehicles that we've included in the budget, old maintenance vehicles that have needed to be replaced for several years now, and those purchases kind of kept getting pushed back and back, and this was related to manufacturing and production of those vehicles for government agencies like ourselves. We did actually recently place an order for several maintenance vehicles, which is the majority of the capital equipment costs that you kind of see in the report there. And some of those vehicles, most of those vehicles were from the prior fiscal year or even the fiscal year before that. We had planned to buy them several years ago. Delays kept happening, but we're starting to catch up on that. Additionally, of course, we had a pretty significant COLA last fiscal year for city employees, and so that was reflected in the first quarter here, whereas it wasn't in the first quarter of last fiscal year. So yeah, I think there are changes all the way around. Also, we've spoken, I know, at length in previous meetings about the effects of inflation across the board. So I think these are all things to be expected. The other side of that equation is that we are expecting pretty significant revenue increase this year as well to offset that. So while the numbers are higher, I think that there were numbers to be expected.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I have one. You mentioned HDL pointed out that we're going to enter a period of stagnation, for our sales tax revenue. And you mentioned, automobile sales, in particular is part of that cause. I keep reading that, the sales may slow down a little bit, but the increase in price is going to offset it. So our income may stay, on a small growth curve. So how accurate do you think HDL is going to be in that category?
Thank you for the question, Mayor. They are the professionals at this. This is obviously we're projecting into the future, and nobody knows what the future holds. But HDL has been, pretty accurate in providing us this sort of data. As I mentioned in the report, and you can see the HDL's report here in Exhibit 2. There are a number of things at play here. Obviously, there's some economic certainty globally right now with a lot of events happening, and that is kind of, I think, preventing people from going out and spending too much money. And then the obvious spike in interest rates over the last year or two has been a significant factor that started to kind of slow those things down. I know, I don't think it was this past quarterly report, but the previous meeting that we had with HDL, they did mention that Cerritos is faring better when compared to other agencies, auto and transportation sector. Our auto square obviously is very large. We have a wide range of of different manufacturers, from high end to kind of middle end types of cars, and that has helped us quite a bit in kind of stabilizing that revenue for the city. But they've been pretty accurate, and again, they've also been pretty conservative over the years, as you can see from the chart. We've ended every fiscal year for the last 4 years, quite a bit above what our projections were at the beginning of the year. So they tend to be a little bit conservative there for safety reasons. But again, as I mentioned, they are projecting kind of a return to normal growth rates here in the next few years. So I think a lot of this is a reversion to the mean. The last couple of years since COVID, we saw some big spikes in sales tax revenue. And so I think this is just the economy kind of slowing down a little bit, reverting to the mean here. And they project by 25, 26 that we should have more kind of steady growth rates of about 3% or so.
Okay, and secondly, there's I saw a reference to a law that Sacramento put in place and the governor signed, saying that we have to put in place a certain amount of equipment, trucks, cars, even hand tools that operate with gas to make them energy neutral. How is that, do you think, is going to affect us? It's gone into effect for the starting this past January, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think these are probably some discussions that we'll have to have with staff as far as how we're going to approach purchases in the future in regards to that. And again, there's probably some uncertainty as far as how that's going to affect financials. And we see the cost of those things. As they're more widely spread, accepted, costs are coming down. So maybe that will help kind of smooth that transition a little bit. But that's something that we'll have to have talks with staff on.
Okay, but if I remember correctly, we have to do it this year. Yeah. So we've already bought some equipment that didn't comply with it. And it doesn't, if I don't remember correctly, it didn't say 100%.
Yeah,
but
and I don't have
the cost is higher today, and if we have to buy it during this year, next year, we can't wait for 3 or 4 or 5 years for the cost to come down. They're saying we have to make the purchases now.
If I may, Mayor,
Yes.
I can add that there have been new regulations put in place related to certain equipment like landscape maintenance equipment needing to go electric. Although the requirement has not yet been in effect, our public works staff did this past year purchase a small number of electrical landscape maintenance equipment items in an effort to test them out. Also perform some electrical upgrades in our maintenance sheds for charging stations, if you will, for those devices. So we've been taking a phased approach, and as later in a few years, the requirement will go into effect for vehicle fleets as well to be electrified. That will incur a significant capital expense in the form of charging stations for the vehicles. And we have had discussions internally about ways we can implement that, and that'll be coming forward to the City Council in the capital improvement program in the years to come. So we continue to watch it and have begun taking steps at this point to address those new requirements.
Okay, and I thought I remember reading that the vehicle side, we need to do some part of it starting next year. For the purchases, not necessarily everything, but I unfortunately I didn't bring it with me, but there's something there, affecting, if I remember correctly, next year.
Okay.
Okay, anyway, thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we open to the public. Is there anyone that wishes to address the council at this time? Seeing none, we'll close public comments. Move to council for direction.
Receive and file.
Move to approve the recommendation as provided.
Second.
A motion has been made by Councilmember Johnson and seconded by Councilmember Yokoyama to approve staff's recommendation At this time, a roll call vote will be conducted. Council Agency Member Johnson,
Aye.
Council Agency Member Vo,
Aye.
Council Agency Member Yokoyama.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem and Vice Chair Solanki.
Aye.
Mayor and Chair Barros.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Robert and Peter, I was at a sanitation district meeting yesterday, and they've said that there's a need for them to, and they voted to go ahead and update their policies affecting the financial, reporting and actions. And I have a copy of it on my desk. And if, Robert, if I can give it to you, you guys can look at it. And if it's anything in there that you think is helpful, I'll let you guys just bring it forward. I did read the whole thing, but there's a lot that just doesn't apply to us.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate it.
Not unless you want to have sole decision on budget amendments over 5 million or 100,000 for some small things. But anyway, I just want to give you an update on it. Thank you. Next item is item 9C. Robert, can we get a staff report, please?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. This last new and old business, item 9C, is coming back to you pursuant to prior city council direction related to an existing policy related to the timing of certain budget-related meetings. The presentation, again, this evening will be given by Mr. Kemp, and following his presentation, he and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez, and good evening again, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. The item before you relates to proposed amendments to Section 2.04 of the City of Cerritos Policy and Procedure Manual, specifically addressing the Strategic Financial Plan and Budget Preparation Policy. For the remainder of the presentation, I will refer to this specific section as the budget policy. On April 28, 2022, the City Council adopted a comprehensive policy and procedure manual. This document was the culmination of an extensive 2-year effort, resulting in a compilation of 54 policies that span the entire scope of the city's functions. A critical component of this manual is the budget policy, which provides a structured set of guidelines designed to steer the development of the strategic financial plan, as well as the budget preparation process. However, the initial application of these guidelines has revealed certain constraints. The practice over the prior fiscal year, particularly concerning the inaugural strategic planning session held on January 28, 2023, indicated that the scheduling provisions within the current budget policy may be too restrictive. Staff found that beginning preliminary budget work in advance of the strategic planning session was less than ideal due to the tight budget preparation timeline necessitated by existing policy constraints. Addressing these concerns, the City Council recently set a date for the next strategic planning session on December 2nd, 2023, and directed staff to propose minor revisions to the budget policy for enhanced scheduling flexibility. Staff has examined the policy and is proposing changes to permit greater adaptability for the timing of the strategic planning session, as well as corresponding budgetary meetings. These changes seek to enhance the efficiency of planning and facilitate the consideration of budget priorities. A red-line version of the policy containing all proposed changes is included in the report as Exhibit 2. It is important to note that the proposed changes to the policy are primarily focused on eliminating timing constraints. These modifications maintain the substance of the meetings and the mandate to conduct them, aiming solely to create a more flexible budgeting process that better accommodates the varying schedules and needs of the City Council and the community. The adoption of the attached resolution in Exhibit 3, approving modifications to the budget policy, will serve to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the city's financial planning and budgeting process. Staff respectfully recommends that the City Council review and discuss the information provided and waive full reading of and adopt a resolution adopting amendments to Section 2.04, Strategic Financial Plan and Budget Preparation Policy of the City of Cerritos Policy and Procedure Manual. This concludes my report. Mr. Lopez and I are available for any questions should you have any.
Are there any questions? Okay, Robert, I have one. These recommended changes, in light of the fact that council has voted to say that we want to be on top of, preventive maintenance. Do these recommended changes either strengthen or weaken, that direction?
I would say that these changes are neutral related to preventative maintenance. What the policy overall provides guidance on certain meetings and discussions that must take place in connection with the preparation of the budget, beginning with the strategic planning session, followed by the 3 budget study sessions. So this proposed amendment simply removes the time constraints and provides more flexibility. It does not remove any other substantive component of the budget policy. So City Council direction related to maintenance can certainly hold even with these changes in place.
Okay, would it strengthen the goals to stay on top of maintenance, with preventive maintenance programs? If that was to be included in the policy, would that accomplish that? Because it's one thing when I read through this, I didn't see that, at best it was neutral, but on the other side, the fact that we're changing things may weaken, that resolve.
If I may, the majority of the proposed amendments can be found, and I'm using the small page number that's centered on the bottom of the page. Pages 18 and 19 contain the majority of the proposed revisions. So, for example, the strategic planning session is currently noted as to occur in January or February. We've simply removed the reference to January and February. The strategic planning session is still something that shall be convened, but we're more flexible now on the timing. And certainly if the City Council wants to reiterate preventative maintenance as a strategic planning goal, or somehow update the policy to specifically reference that, we can entertain that. Tonight's amendments are strictly limited to timing of the meetings and not content or policy.
I have a question, Mayor.
Okay, certainly.
So on the 2.4050, it says mid-year budget review. Why would be a problem on December or January? That's mid-year.
Yes, good question. So when we do the mid-year, actually, we're looking at the first 6 months of the fiscal year, which ends in December. And we then compile the data from July 1st through December 31st and assess that in the early part of the next calendar year, so January or February. But because the removal of the reference here was actually in reference to the strategic planning session. And the idea behind this is that the strategic planning session will occur first, which will guide the policies and directions that will form the new fiscal year budget. So we'll take the data collected during the mid-year review, combined with direction provided by the City Council during the strategic planning session, and that will help to build the end of fiscal year and new fiscal year budget.
Yeah, but I have a problem. So your mid-year finishes on December 31st. Why can't we have a review in January?
It could occur. We had it in January this past year. What we found is that it didn't provide sufficient time for staff to then, with council direction, build the budget in time, with all the steps involved prior to the adoption later in the fiscal year. So the goal is to be flexible. It wouldn't prevent a meeting from occurring in January, but following up on the discussion that occurred in recent weeks, we've scheduled the strategic planning session for December 2nd.
Mayor, so this was approved by Policy and Procedure Committee. Shouldn't this go back to the Policy and Procedure Committee?
Putting me on the spot.
That's what we did for the other items a couple of weeks ago.
So I,
Wait, do you have a thought on?
oh, no, I had it.
He has a question. He's
Okay.
looking for an answer. I thought you might want to chime in on it.
I guess what I'm seeing here is that the revision on the policy is to be less restrictive, but then I think staff knows too when deadlines need to be met, correct? You know when the budget needs to be adopted. We have deadlines that have to be met legally. So, but this is just a restriction. Is to it's this less restrictive so that in planning the budget planning sessions prior to the final adoption of the budget.
That's correct. Yeah, the goal here is certainly to comply with all the legal requirements as well as the policies set forth by the council to conduct these meetings. We simply wanted to remove the time constraint so that we can actually do it earlier than what was originally anticipated.
Okay, if I can just follow up with, a question that for Naresh that he asked. The reference to the Monday after the election is certified, when we have the years we have elections, for the goal to review the budget process. Naresh is looking to have information from the close of December, which would be technically sometime maybe at the very end of January or later. Is that correct?
For purposes of the mid-year review, yeah, that the compilation of that data would occur in early January. But the changes proposed here relate specifically to the strategic planning session, which we have tentatively scheduled for December 2nd this year. So the goal in preparing these changes pursuant to the prior direction by the City Council about a month ago was just to make sure that the planned December 2nd meeting is in alignment with the amended policy.
Okay, but I guess I didn't ask my question correctly. Our report on sales tax revenue is roughly 6 months after the close of any quarter. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're typically about a quarter behind. So we just like the most recent report that we received was for the second quarter of calendar year 2023, and we typically receive that report right after the third quarter. So we will typically receive that sometime in late October or so. So kind of as it relates to what Mr. Lopez was discussing, we would not have our updated, in addition to providing, past data and results, they also provide us updated forecasts. Typically the forecast that we use during that mid-year process is the report that they provide in January. And for them to compile their data, provide us that report, it's typically, later in January that we'll have that meeting with HTL. They'll provide us the most recent forecast for the upcoming fiscal year, and that's typically in years past what we've used for the budget development process.
If I can also add, Mayor, that the first budget study session, which would occur late January, maybe February, we would be presenting information to the City Council that comes from those very reports. So there are many opportunities during the budget preparation process to review new information. The most critical, time-sensitive information is that which is provided by the City Council in that initial strategic planning session. But the first budget study session would be a perfect opportunity to revisit some of the additional data that comes later.
So in essence, I think what I'm hearing is that whether we meet and have this session in December or January, neither time are we working with, up to date as of that date with, the actual income that we have. We know what our expenses are because that we should be able to pull, on any given day.
Thank you for the question,
In terms
Mayor.
of revenue, it's more of it's more just a gray area.
Now, we do receive preliminary forecasts each quarter. In fact, during our meeting that we just had in October, there was a forecast there for the next fiscal year. So what we'd like to do ideally during the budget process is use the most recent forecast, the way the scheduling has worked in the past, and with the timing of the preliminary budget. The forecast that we receive in January after that fourth quarter of the calendar year is typically the one that we've used. But the forecast that we used, that we received in this past meeting is one that we can present to the city council as a preliminary consideration. Again, these are all projections into the future. We don't know what that is, and they try to refine those projections each quarter and as we get closer. But the plan is to use the forecast that we have now and then provide additional updates as we go through the budget preparation process on those forecasts.
Okay, but if I remember hearing you correctly, you said those forecasts are conservative.
I think that's a fair statement, yeah.
And then if we were to have a meeting in, early December, we would almost need to have a follow-up meeting sometime after
So what we can do,
January, to update both the goals of the council policy-wise and to have more accurate numbers. So that's, in essence, we both need to refine, both sides of it.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and I think really that kind of defines the entire budget process, and we're kind of constantly refining as we go and as we get additional information. So during that strategic financial planning session in December, we'll be providing the forecasts that we have now that we just received. When we come back for that budget study session 1, we will have a more refined forecast at that point, and we'll be able to present that as just additional information to consider. And at that point, if there are material changes to that forecast, changes might need to be considered. But I think that the important thing is that we're using the most current data that we have, and we are updating that data as it's received.
So, Naresh, would that answer your question if we were to have
No, it is not.
a budget study session early in December and an updated one, because you're looking at for more recent numbers?
So you can keep the mid-year on a December preliminary number, and then in January you can give accurate number, right?
That's correct. The December 2nd meeting will be the kickoff for the budget season, the budget preparation season, and the City Council will provide the big picture goals. At the first budget study session, we'll be able to report on newer updates, data from newer projections, and we would also present to you the strategic objectives that meet the goals that have been presented by the City Council. So it'll be additional refinement and updates in the budget process. The December 2nd strategic planning session, in order to align with the policy, would necessitate the amendments proposed this evening so that we can make sure everything is consistent.
So right now, I really like to keep it the way it is, do not like to make any changes, and if we do need to make a changes, this has to go to the policy committee.
Make a motion.
That's my motion. No changes.
Okay, is there a second? I'll go ahead and make the second for purposes of discussion. Are there any discussion on this item? Hearing none. Vita, can you do a roll call on Naresh's motion?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, a motion has been made by Mayor Pro Tem Solanki and seconded by Mayor Barrows, and this is to refer the policy back to the Policy and Procedure Committee for review prior to it returning to the City Council. Is that correct with the maker of the motion?
Correct.
At this time, a roll call vote
I'm
will be
sorry. I think he said to also keep it the way it is.
So nothing gonna change.
for now until it is referred back to the Policy and Procedure Committee for review. Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay. Thank you. At this time, a roll call vote will be conducted. Council Agency Member Johnson?
No.
Council Agency Member Vo?
Aye.
Council Agency Member Yokoyama?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem and Vice Chair Solanki?
Aye.
Mayor and Chair Barrows?
Aye.
The motion passes by a vote of 3-2.
Yeah. Robert, can we have that meeting scheduled as soon as possible so it can be brought back to the council as soon as possible?
Yes, Mayor, our staff will reach out to the committee members to confirm availability, and we'll meet as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Does that mean we're gonna postpone the strategic planning session on December 2 since it's violating our policies and
If I may,
our policies and procedures manual?
if I may, council member, there's a possibility that we can bring back this proposed amendment to the November 27th city council meeting with a possible meeting of the policy committee prior to that.
Okay, so to answer your question, Frank, is maybe we should continue to hold that date, for the study session, just in case. We can always cancel it, but it's going to be hard to reschedule later. Okay, that's the last of new and old business with legislative items. Is there anything to report, Robert?
No, Mayor, we have no legislative items to report this evening.
Thank you. Okay, under reports, any reports in from our new city manager?
Thank you. We have no reports this evening, sir.
Okay, council communications. Start, Linda, with you.
Thank you. On October the 27th, I was at the CCPA and saw the performance by Lou Graham, the original voice of Foreigner. On October 28th, I attended the Cerrito Station Halloween Craft Fair and Boutique. On November 8th, I attended the Magic School Bus performance at the CCPA, which is part of the Arts Education Program. It was well attended by many schools in our area. I'd like to thank Supervisor Janice Hahn for her annual sponsorship of this program. Recently, I was informed by the League of California Cities Los Angeles County Division, President B. Derringer, that she has appointed me as the division's representative on the Public Safety Policy Committee. I'll take the knowledge I have gained from working with both the District Attorney's Office and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department as I serve on this committee. I'd like to bring up a consensus item. With Veterans Day coming up on November the 11th, I'm proud that our city is honoring them at an event this coming Saturday. I'd also like to take it one step further and introduce to my colleagues Operation Greenlight. The National Association of Counties and the National Association of County Veteran Services Officers invites the nation's 3,069 counties, parishes, and boroughs to join Operation Greenlight to show support for veterans by lighting our buildings green from November 6th through the 12th. By shining a green light, county governments and our residents will let veterans know that they are seen, appreciated, and supported. So the two consensus requests that I do have is that we light up our sculpture garden with a green light for the remainder of the week, since the week is from November 6th to November 12th. So to light up the sculpture garden fixture there for the remainder of the week and end on November 12th to acknowledge our veteran community. And the second request is to direct the city manager to prepare a resolution for 2024 to support Operation Greenlight for veterans for next year's Veterans Week. I have copies of a sample resolution from my colleagues for consideration and for the city manager and for staff to consider as well. And like I said, this is for next year, So that's, okay, so my first one then is, do I have consensus then to light up our sculpture garden for the remainder of the week with a green light to acknowledge our veteran committee?
Councilmember, if I may, prior to consideration of the request, I would like to point out that tomorrow is a city staff holiday.
Oh,
And we wouldn't, if there is consensus, we wouldn't be able to have the sufficient staff resources
didn't
to
realize.
accomplish that.
that's okay. Then I'll pull that back and then just focus maybe then for next year. And that is the resolution I had shared. It's just a sample resolution. We, of course, can tweak it to us. There's a copy for Bill as well. And it's something to consider for next year, but hopefully I could get consensus so that we can add it to our consensus list and work on it for next year. If I could have consensus then to direct the city manager to prepare a resolution for next year's.
Can you, How about have him review this, staff, and bring it back at our next meeting?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm
Appreciate
just
it.
thinking, taking time to read it all. It sounds like a
Okay.
good idea.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that is all.
Is there a
from me.
consensus for that?
Yes, I bring it back. Ready.
Okay,
Okay.
there you go.
Thank you.
May I have some flexibility on the timing of bringing it back? We do have,
a whole year.
okay,
Thank you.
we will note for the consensus action at a future meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Naresh?
Yes. On October 27, went to the ribbon cutting ceremony for the and presented a proclamation to Methodism. And on November 2nd, went to San Pedro to see a state of county by Janice Hahn, where we discussed many things about homeless and crimes, mental health, etc. November 3rd, attended the Diwali function at the Leal Elementary School. And November 8th, went and welcomed the, was two presentations at the CCPA, at the Magic School Bus. One was at 9:30 and another one is 11:30. And today attended the Co-America Bank, had a celebration of Diwali again, joining in Artesia and Cerritos Chambers. And then I do have, you want me to do this?
Yeah, just 1 second. We'll close to this part.
Okay.
Okay, Chung, do you have any?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I'll defer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I have nothing to report. Naresh, you want to go ahead and share that?
Okay. Okay, we have some upcoming community events. Annual Veterans Day ceremony at Cerrito Civic Center, Saturday, November 11 at 10 a.m., which is right here. Next one we have is the Southern California Brass Consortium Veterans Day concert featuring patriotic music, which is Saturday, November 11 at 3 p.m. Tickets available at $10. And then annual tree lighting ceremony with Santa arriving, entertainment, and craft for children, Monday, November 27 from 5 to 7 p.m. prior to the next city council meeting. And we have Santa float will be going through the city December 4th, 5th, and 6th. Again on December 11, 12, and 13, and Friday the December 15. Please check the website for the specific route. There are numerous holiday events and activities for the community sponsored by Park and Recreation Division, Cerrito Library, Community Participation and Senior Center, and Cerrito Center for the Performing Arts. Check the city's website for additional information. Holiday donation opportunity. Residents and community members can remember unprivileged children by donating to Toys for Tots program, sponsored by United States Marine Corps. The Salvation Army also have Angel Tree program for needy children. For more information about this program, call Community Participation Division at 562-865-8101. And I guess here's the Christmas flyer. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And we do have closed session.
Mayor, can I give my
Yes,
report,
I'm
please?
sorry, Frank, I didn't mean to overlook you.
That's okay, thank you. One thing I'd like to report is at last week's SCAG meetings, SCAG awarded a $5 million grant to the Gateway Cities Affordable Housing Trust. And this $5 million grant from SCAG was from the highly competitive REAP 2.0 Path program funding. And this $5 million grant from SCAG to the Gateway Cities Affordable Housing Trust will fund a new pre-development loan program aimed at supporting affordable housing development in the Gateway Cities subregion. what makes this grant, $5 million grant, even better is that this $5 million will be matched by funding from a nonprofit financial intermediary. So that means as a result of this grant from SCAG to the Gateway Cities COG, we now have $10 million funding the Gateway Cities Affordable Housing Trust, and that $10 million goes to will benefit the cities of the Gateway Cities COG, which of course includes our city, the city of Cerritos. Last week, on Monday, October 30, I was excited to be invited to join Petros and Money at BJ's Restaurant and Brew House in Cerritos. They invited me to their show, and they also invited Linda, and they interviewed me about the city of Cerritos, and we talked about the great city of Cerritos, and this was a repeat visit to Cerritos, and the thing that's so cool about it is, as I was enjoying their show and meeting the restaurant patrons who were there eating at BJ's and watching their show, while there were Cerritos residents there were many Petros and Money fans from outside of Cerritos who came to watch their show in person in our Cerritos BJ's. So I was happy to have a talk with them on their sports talk radio show. It was a fun experience, and I think it was also funny watching them have a lot of fun barraging Councilmember Johnson with a lot of fun questions. Also, last week on October 30 and October 31, I had a great time. I was honored to participate in welcoming the Kakamigahara Middle School students from Japan back once again to our city of Cerritos and to the ABC School District. I got to do this before the pandemic. For the 3 years that I was on the city council, for 3 years, every year they came in the fall. The Kakamigahara Middle School students came to visit the ABC School District, and the ABC School District would let the city of Cerritos be involved, and they would come and visit our library, and library staff would take them on a wonderful tour, and that would be one of their memories of visiting Cerritos. We didn't make that happen this year because of the short notice, but I'm hoping that we can include a visit to our wonderful Cerritos Library in the future, because it looks like the visit from the Kakamigahara Japan Middle School students is back on track. So this is the first time they came since the pandemic, but they had 20 middle schoolers, plus the superintendent of their school, plus some school staff, visit our school district, visit Whitney, and visit Haskell, and visit Carmenita. So I'm thankful to the ABC School District for letting me participate in that very meaningful to me event with students from another country of Japan. The last thing, and the thing that means the most for tonight is I wanted to please ask everybody to please pray for Ethan Soriano and his parents and 2 brothers and the Soriano family and the Guzman families. It was a devastating accident that on Saturday, he got hurt at his Cerritos High School basketball practice. And unfortunately, he passed away on Monday. I would like to adjourn a meeting of the City Council in his memory in the future, when the family can give their consent and words they'd like to share. I ask everybody to please pray for Ethan Soriano and his family and friends and teammates. In the meantime, there is a GoFundMe for Ethan Soriano. I'm lucky to have known Ethan. He epitomized perseverance. Rest in power, Ethan. Please, everybody, pray for Ethan, the Soriano family, and the Guzman family. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on, after that said, comments, but Bill, we do have a closed session. Can you get us there?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Tonight we have 2 closed sessions, a conference with labor negotiators pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6 with agency negotiators Robert A. Lopez, City Manager, Bill Urke, City Attorney, and Patricia Leyva, Personnel Risk Manager. First with the employee organization AFS-CME Local 619, and the second with unrepresented employees full-time exempt. And with that, we can adjourn or recess into closed session, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.